guys, welcome back to my channel. Stacy, I'm glad to have you on, and I think a lot of people will appreciate what you have to say today.
I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 18, but I personally believe it all started when I was born. Both my parents were cigarette smokers. My mom quit whenever she was pregnant with me. My dad smoked in the house and even smoked in the house up until I was 14 years old. And then eventually quit smoking in the house whenever there were grandkids around and my brother got married and there was someone else around who kind of wanted not to be around that anymore. I think, that had a lot to do with my growth in my body as well as the foods that I was eating. I was raised on traditionally Southern fried diet. Again, it's just what my parents knew. There's, no shame to them at all. It's just the way I was raised. And my dad was also a truck driver. He was self-employed. And so my mom, was the one working at home. So it also had a lot to do with what we could afford to get on the table. I had two older brothers. And so I know that they were kind of high priority on who got the most amount of food and who was eating the least. I really think a lot of my issues stemmed from when I was younger, and that's kind of how my body developed as I got older. And then I had knee issues in third and fourth grade. I started dancing, and that's when I really started noticing issues was in my knees. All the movement that I was doing, the snacks that I was eating on the way to dance class, we were eating chocolate and chips. And again, there's nothing wrong with those things, but when that's all you're eating all the time, it really can affect how your body's growing at such a young age and expending so much energy. And so my mom also was kind of raised more with the homeopathic approach, being that her family was more from the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains of Tennessee. And so they kind of always strayed away from doctors. And so we were also always looking at more of natural approaches versus going to the doctor or incorporating that in with the doctor. And so as I was diagnosed with these issues at 18, my mom really just kind of was like, all right, let's see what we need to do and who's the best specialist and where do we need to go from there. So once I did a round of medications and nothing was working, it started to be like, okay, we need to seek other sources because you're not getting the results that you need and you can't work a full-time job, and I wanted to be independent at 18. My process started when I was 18, and so I was really angry about it. My senior year of high school, I'm getting diagnosed with something that I assumed people had when they were older, and everyone else is enjoying their life while I'm in a boot. I had to have a boot on my ankle for a month or so just so they could figure out what was going on. I couldn't walk in the morning. It was just really kind of trying to diagnose and figure out. I did MRIs and things like that. So yeah, it was tough.
Your story is pretty similar to mine in the fact that we were both diagnosed at 18, and my dad was also a cigarette smoker. There is a huge connection with cigarette smoking and rheumatoid arthritis, which I found out later. I myself never smoked cigarettes, but I think also the exposure growing up, I think may or may not have contributed to rheumatoid arthritis or juvenile arthritis within my own story. As you probably found out that there's multiple reasons as to why we are diagnosed with this. It seems to be 5 to 10 different things going on in our bodies. Did you find on your journey you had food intolerances and sensitivities at all?
I really didn't actually learn that until about 24, after I'd been through a round of from 18 to 22, trying a bunch of different medications like we talked about earlier. None of them working for me. I think now that I'm thinking about it, prednisone, methotrexate. I mean, I was on prednisone for, probably 3 years just to minimize my symptoms. But, then with that comes weight gain and other things that I was also trying to manage while trying to work and go to school. But I'm currently not on medication anymore. I finally went off of Humira, which was the one medication that I found that did work for me. It had a lifespan of 5 years for me. And then I noticed that it was not working anymore. I wasn't gluten-free or anything like that. I was eating just normal foods, a regular diet. But I was like, okay, I need to figure out something else because this medicine isn't working for me. So I went through a food sensitivity test and actually learned that I was going through what they call leaky gut symptoms. And so I went on a protocol with a specialist doctor that I found in Franklin. I'm from Tennessee. So it was a group of doctors there that only worked with people that had autoimmune issues. So I went through their protocol of leaky gut healing and learned about being gluten-free, learned about how you can eat more plants and vegetables and incorporate them in your diet, and trying to eat cleaner meats at this time in my life. But after I went through that process, I started learning more about being vegan and plant-based and how those meats and things can affect your joints. And I know my uncle has gout. And so I'd kind of also heard about his issues and symptoms with eating red meat. And so at that point, I'd also watched a documentary called What the Health. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it. And I'd seen so many people getting off medications. And I was like, you know what? I just want to try it. And so that was my first thing, was realizing all the food sensitivities that I do have. Like, I have a really big dairy intolerance. I've tested it several times. It's the same every single time. If I eat anything with cheese in it, I mean, within 15 minutes, my hands will swell up immediately. It's the first symptom. And then it will take, at least 3 days for me to feel normal again. So I definitely think that's a big thing that, anyone with chronic illness or arthritis, any gut issues, food sensitivities are definitely going to be an issue. But I later came to find out that you can have food sensitivities that are actually related to you have a parasite or having a parasitic infection. And so that's something that I'm really big about, is testing for parasites yearly, if not twice a year, depending on what you do. If you travel a lot, or if you aren't around places that you can create your own meals or prep and meal plan to go places, and you have to rely on fast food or processed foods, you're really risking, especially if you're immunocompromised, you're really risking your gut health just from simply the oils that they're cooking things in. I know for even several years, I still thought I could get away with eating French fries out. And even just this year, we're always changing and evolving. And even just this year, I was like, within the past month, I was like, I can't do French fries out anymore because I can't trust the oils and what they're being cooked in. It's upsetting my stomach that much. So I think just really being in tune with your body and seeing how foods make you feel is really important to people with chronic disease or arthritis.
Yeah, and I know there's so many people out there who don't really see food as an issue, and they tell you just eat whatever. I know for me though, like you said yourself, you've tested things several times. So I really have the proof too. Like, dairy was a big issue for like 8-10 years. Over time, as I, focused on the gut health, that lessened and it sort of disappeared. But that doesn't mean I went back to eating dairy. Have you tried any of those programs out there, or did you just kind of like, look over different things on the internet and kind of figure out what is best for you with your doctors?
I am really particular about things like that, just because I've even been with where I'm from in Murfreesboro, it's like Middle Tennessee. So we would always go to Nashville, and I've literally always had any specialist that you can imagine from Vanderbilt. I've met so many and been through so many different doctors, and they didn't listen to me. So I became really particular about the people that I did listen to and who gave me advice. And that's one thing I really try and tell people all the time, is like, look at your resources and where you're getting your information from, because there are a lot of people out here that are sharing information, which I think is important. But like you said, we always are coming from our own perspective. And I try and always share that as well. This is just my path and my journey and what I've experienced. But I think it's so important to always find specialists in your area that you can communicate with. Even if it's like a homeopathic, functional, integrative medicine. I've got a person that I keep in touch with. She's in Murfreesboro. I currently live in Scottsville, Kentucky right now. So it's a smaller town. So even some of the doctors here, I will go to if it's an emergency because I need to get in somewhere. But I'm always going to refer back to my integrative medicine doctor in Murfreesboro, and then my specialist that I have at St. Thomas in Nashville. So I think it's really important to check your people out and not just follow simple protocols that you see online, or, it may have worked for that person and maybe it will work for you, but I think you should still bring it up to someone who knows your health history, knows what you've been through, and then they can tell you, hey, that would work, but we need to ease you into it, because maybe they know your environment and they know that, you're not going to be able to go plant-based in 24 hours because you have 4 kids and you're married and you're, the one that stays at home to make the meals. So it might be easier to ease your way into things. So I think it's still important to find specialists and doctors that you do trust and they listen to you.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, like, even with social media, there's so much noise that we just have to sort of, like, take what resonates and leave the rest, but even things I read, I always just go ask my doctor. I don't just try things, or, like, if I know it works for my body, I'll try it, so I guess it just depends on each person. But with, like, you stopping Humira, did you just do that cold turkey, or did you, I'm assuming, talk to your doctor?
I had also, I had, I was on a thyroid medication. I was on antidepressant, anti-anxiety. I had prednisone just for backup when my Humira wasn't really working. So at this point, I was pretty much taking it 10 milligrams every day
Yeah.
with the Humira twice or once every 2 weeks. And so I was at the point, like I was telling you earlier, I was not working. I just had a visit with my specialist, and we just did blood work, and she was like, I mean, I can see that you're inflamed, and we definitely need to have another option. So I went home, and within that week, I started doing research myself, and I called her and was like, hey, I am really interested in this plant-based diet, and I want to try this out and quit cold turkey. And she was like, okay, you have prednisone. I've already given you a prescription for that. She sent me in a new prescription of 30 milligrams just so I could have it in case I got really inflamed. And she was like, you're due back for blood work at the end of this month anyway. Let's do another round after, you tried out for 30 days. So honestly, it was perfect timing. And again, I had a doctor who was willing to do this with me. I'd been through probably 10 specialists, RA specialists at this point in my path. And so this was like 2017. So from 2009 to 2017, I've been through 10 doctors, and some of them will just leave. They've left new practices, and you just have to find someone else. So I found she's Dr. Lyons in St. Thomas in Nashville. She's amazing. But she was the first person to hear me out on my food sensitivities and guide me through that, and also help me stay up to date and regular. So now I just have to go see her once a year for regular blood panels and make sure that everything's looking good. And then I see my integrative functional doctor whenever I need to, every 3 months or any, monthly if I needed to.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, combination therapy has always worked for me. My goal is also to eventually get off the meds. I'm on Humira now. I restarted after about 10 years. But sometimes with these medicines, it's like a double-edged sword. You kind of notice that it aggravates you too at the same time. But it also depends on the severity. I mean, I have moderate to severe RA, so I have to have something right now while I work through this, unfortunately. But some people can get away with doing what you did and they're fine. But that's not to say that you weren't on anything either. You were on something.
And I think one thing that was hard for me, I mean, during this whole process, at 18 years old, I'm finishing my senior year of high school, I had already decided I wanted to be a cosmetologist. I was going to be a hairdresser. And my doctors laughed at right in front of my face whenever I would tell them that, because they're just like, you're already in for a rude awakening, and now you're adding this can of worms on top of it. Like, you're really not doing yourself a favor. And so I did all of that on top of that. And so really at the point when my medicine was maxing out, I mean, I was managing a salon, working 40 plus hours a week, eating a terrible diet, and not giving myself any time to stress relieve after work or stretch or do anything for myself afterwards, because I was ready to crash. So yeah, I think, a lot of times people just didn't even see that in me because I didn't want to show how much I was hurting. I still was trying to build a clientele and be, this amazing hairdresser that I wanted to be, with all these other issues. I remember one day I was trying to finish blowing out one of my clients, and I'd taken a vitamin on an empty stomach because I'm just trying to take care of myself, but I chugged a bottle of water, and there's no time to eat. You wake up late, get ready to go, and just show up for work. And I was ready to pass out. I thought I was going to pass out and throw up at the same time. And so I couldn't finish her. And I was like, hey, I'm going to be right back. I had one of my girlfriends who we just worked together, and she didn't have anybody, so she blew her out for me. But she messaged me later, the client messaged me later, and she was like, I would have never guessed anything was wrong with you. You have such a good poker face. And so I think it was really just my mindset mentality of not wanting to show that I had something that was wrong with me, but really there was nothing wrong with me. It was just an issue that I had to overcome. I never have not had anything to help me. Even now, I finally retired from working full time and doing hair. And I work from home and do other things for my company and my business that we own. But even still, I have to find ways to manage the pain because I do have flare-ups. But for me personally, I've maxed out all of my medications, and I don't want to go down that route because of the other issues that it gave me. And so I'm just learning to manage and cope along the way. So even when you do that, just like you said, like I still have days where it may take me, 2 hours to get out of bed and I can't get moving, but I'm in yoga class that I teach, at 5:30 p.m. on Friday. So it's just like you said, we're always moving and showing our ways through this, but you're always managing your own pain in different ways, I guess.
Yeah. And like one thing I've noticed, even with myself, I feel like a lot of people with RA and chronic disease in general, we're a little more type A personalities where we're hard workers, tenacious. And so like, we don't really show exactly what's going on a lot of the times. We tend to sugarcoat. But I was laughing earlier because you were told that like you shouldn't become like a hairdresser or something. I was told things too, like you shouldn't be like a writer, you shouldn't be this because your hands. But at the end of the day, we're going to be using our body no matter what we do. So I'm really glad that you went forward with your career choice and you did what you did for as long as you could, And while you were working, like when did you find a point in time to be like, okay, I'm going to change my lifestyle. I'm going to take time out for stress relief, like meditate. You said you teach yoga. Like, how did that all come to be?
So yeah, I originally, when I first got into going to cosmetology school, I had a job at the YMCA in my hometown, which I loved. I got to be around people and kids, which is one of the reasons I went into doing hair. Was like I just wanted to make people feel good about themselves. That's everyone wants to feel good about themselves, and I feel like I'm just such a hype man and a cheerleader that it was just like something that was for me. And so, anyways, at that age, time, I got really into yoga because we could go to classes and stuff for free. So I was always into the idea of that. And like I remember in high school, I met a couple of people that were vegan and plant-based, and like I knew about it, but I was never around those things and never exposed to recipes. So I didn't really know how to do it. And so it came to a point where I was managing the salon, and I was working 40 hours a week. And there was just a lot going on in my life at that time. But I had also been in a serious relationship for a while with my now husband. But I was like ready to move on from the stress that this salon had created in my life. I thought that I wanted to stay there and I wanted to build it up, but I knew like I wanted to do more in this industry before I had to quit. I always said I knew I wouldn't be able to do it past 30. So I needed to make some changes so that I could enjoy this last little bit in my industry. And this was, I think I was about 25, 26-ish. And so I'm like trying to figure out how to slow things down. And it all just boils up to a head. And I went plant-based, like I was telling you earlier, in 2017, kind of like overnight. And after I did that, I started learning about foods, and I was like being really picky about the foods I was eating. I was like, well, wow, I really want to be more particular about the products that I'm using in the salon and the things that I'm breathing all day long. And so I started learning more about non-toxic products. And one of my girlfriends, I had just kind of told her, I'm ready to de-stress and do less. I need to like start doing less because every other year I wanted to do more, more, more. How could I outdo myself from the year before? Or, what photo shoots could I book and do something new? But really, I was like, I need to slow down. And so I started to look at how can I slow down? And I'd also always wanted to move to Nashville and do hair in Nashville. So again, this was something kind of part of my bucket list before I quit in the industry. And so my friend sent me a salon that was hiring in Marathon Village at the time. And it was an all organic, non-toxic, like salon, spa, boutique. And I was just like, Bob, never even heard of any of these lines. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I'm so picky already. And I was like, you know what? Fear is only going to hold me back from change and growth. So whatever, I'm just going to do it. I applied. They ended up calling me the next day, wanted an interview. And this was the first salon that had ever done that with me in Nashville. I had applied my whole career up to this point at multiple places in Nashville, but it's very hard to get a job in the salons there because they're looking for a specific look. You have to fit their kind of energy in the salon or their, style. And so I couldn't believe that they reached out to me so quickly. I was just like, I'm going to take this. There's no way that this isn't the right opportunity. I have tried so hard to get out of this management position that I'm in. This is the right place for me. And when I went in for my interview, they were talking about they were doing a screening for What the Health that weekend in the salon with their clients. And I was just like, what? I've never even heard of that before. Like, I just went plant-based, and all of my coworkers are like making fun of my food every day. So it was really cool to be around like-minded people and see that energy. And it just took off from there. I fell in love with the products. I fell in love with the mentality that the stylist had. It wasn't even just the products, it was also the people that I was working with. So not only were the products non-toxic, but the environment. And I mean, I can't even explain it. If you've never worked in a salon, you can't get it. If you've gotten your hair done in one, you can understand how it feels. But like being from the South, I mean, I was really in the Steel Magnolias vibes. I mean, it is like, everyone's talking about everyone, and there's always just some kind of gossip going on. And I never wanted to be around that. I wanted to be around people who wanted to elevate their minds and talk about their feelings, or like how they can feel better about themselves, or maybe they have an issue that they're struggling with their body, and they want to know, like, how can I let go of this shame and guilt that I have? I feel like sitting in front of the mirror is such a time to reflect and think about ourselves, that a lot of times it gets wasted in the salon on just gossip and terrible things. So I really fell in love with it. And then after that, I was able to open up my own space and ease down even more. So at this point in the pandemic was really when we had lockdown. I had opened my own space in January of 2020. So that was crazy. I was really excited and so gung-ho about everything being, perfect and amazing in my new spot on Music Row. And it was really great. And even throughout the lockdown, I still had clients that, because they'd been with me for 10 plus years and followed my whole journey. I mean, some people, they could afford to send me payments like they were still getting their hair done. So it was really incredible, the experience that, I've learned from working in a traditional salon to working in non-toxic, and how you can grow and evolve with your clients. And so during the pandemic lockdown, I used that time. I'd always wanted to become a yoga instructor. That was something that was really important to me throughout my journey. When I finally left the salon that I was managing in Murfreesboro and moved to Nashville, and got the job at the salon that's non-toxic, I was working, 3 days a week, maybe 6-hour shifts. And so I really had a lot of time to myself to de-stress and learn how to meditate and do things on my own. I was going to classes and doing all kinds of things that, made my heart happy, instead of doing things that was like just to make money or just to get by, honestly, for, just to do someone's hair to get a paycheck. And so in the pandemic, when I was able to open my own salon, fast forward to opening my own salon, lockdown, I used that time to actually get yoga certified. So I did an online program where I was able to become a certified personal trainer, sports nutritionist, and yoga instructor. So at this point, I really wanted to incorporate all the things that I've learned in my healing journey, as far as like beauty, skincare, body needs, how all those things can affect your endocrine system and your thyroid, and the way that we process that through our body and into our gut, into the foods that we eat on our breaks, or in any job that you have, any of the food that you eat, how you're feeding your body, to, feeding your soul and the people that are around you, your environment. All these things matter. And I think that, really gets pushed to the wayside, and that people overlook that. So that was kind of why I wanted to step into those roles. I knew as I retired from doing hair, I wanted to focus more on the mind, body, soul aspect of how those things work and incorporate together in a healing journey.
You said it so beautifully. I really I'm inspired by your journey.
Thank you.
Yeah. Isn't it beautiful though, how sometimes a shitty diagnosis can also lead you down a path to just overall self-discovery and improvement in your overall life in all areas?
I remember crying to my mom whenever I was first diagnosed, just so upset, like, why would this happen? Why? I don't understand. And it's all because of this, it's so important to share with other people. And I look at it as like, I like to inspire other people. That's why I try and stay so positive. Just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean that you can't try and turn it around in one way or another. There's so many different sensories that we have to try and increase dopamine and serotonin. So it's like, why wouldn't you want to find a way to make yourself feel better instead of just like trying to feel sad? Not every day's that easy, but you got to push through. Nobody's going to be able to do it by yourself.
Yeah. And then, before we go, I wanted to ask, like, when it comes to your plant-based diet, like, did you look up any cookbooks? Do you have any favorite cookbooks, or was there a specific plan, or do you just kind of tailor what, like you were saying, with your doctors? Because I know there's a lot of people out there who may be interested, maybe looking up your references, or if you have like a non-toxic skincare line or hair product that you recommend. I know a lot of people in the community, especially the arthritis one, love that stuff. You can tell people where to find you as well if they can connect with you, because you are pretty resourceful. So just by connecting with you myself, you have a lot of good things to offer the community.
So after basically this year was a really big year for me. I retired from the hair industry and left my business to my successor. So I trained her in all of my methods, and she's using all the products and everything that I was using. So I was operating under Blue Dream Salon, and that's where she's at in Nashville. So I love that for her. That's been so great. So as I transitioned with that, I wanted to still have my own business and share all the things that I've learned. And so with Blue Dream Salon, we were operating that under my husband and I's main company, which is called Style and Soul, which our website is Inspire Style and Soul. So I love that you said that about being inspiring, because that's, one thing I love to do is we are all an inspiration to someone in some way. And so I think it's always showing that we're inspiring style and soul no matter where we are, and showing the people that inspired us as well. And so with that, I just kind of transitioned from Blue Dream Salon into Mind, Body, Style, and Soul. And that's my personal page on Inspire Style Soul, our website. And so with that, I'm offering just basically right now online virtual services. So I've got a beauty coaching where I can help people switch from regular standard beauty products to non-toxic and clean beauty products. It's really cool. It's a whole mind, body, soul experience whenever you do switch to non-toxic, because it's not only affecting your hair, it's affecting your skin, it's affecting your mood. So I really have loved that, and I love to share that with people. And then also I have got Reiki listed on there. Reiki is something that I also picked up along the way. It's energy work. Energy, we basically can hold blockages and things within ourselves and not even realize it. It may have been something that bothered you at 3 years old and you haven't thought about it in forever, but it's still giving you trauma to this day, and maybe hurting you in your responses and how you act at work or respond with your friends or family members. And so Reiki is just a way to help people remove those blockages without talking about it. I think I know personally, I've been to therapy multiple times in my life, and I don't always want to talk about what I've been through. I don't think that that's always the necessary approach to go about. I think it's needed, yes, sometimes, but it's not always the way you have to go about it. I do distant Reiki healing for people if they're looking for a different approach to move through emotions. We can talk about things, you may experience visuals. You may have dreams throughout, later on throughout the week. It has lasting effects, and you kind of know whenever you need it. You might start to feel that you're feeling out of touch with yourself, or you might be snapping at other people. So that's something that I also offer. Reiki, I do also offer tarot readings. I grew up super religious. I grew up in church, like Southern Baptist. My grandfather was the deacon at the church. And so religion was important to me, but not how it was portrayed in church. And as I've grown up and done my own research and learned about multiple different religions, and I love to study culture and learn how religion plays a role in each culture, I've gotten really into tarot and studying, other, spiritual ways to connect with ourselves. And the tarot decks are really cool. It's really all how you interpret it. I may be pulling the cards, but it's your life and your story behind it. And so each thing has a different meaning to each person. I could pull a card and it resonate with me and you at the same time, and we're both going through a similar experience, but it's completely different. So I love the tarot. It's a really beautiful tool to work with if you just kind of let your ego down and let your guard down and just look at your life for what it really is, because there's always something to be learned. I also do virtual yoga. I know with people sometimes, I know for me personally, I experienced having to leave several yoga classes in Nashville just because maybe it's too experienced, or maybe I don't feel comfortable in the class because I can't even do what they're doing and they're not giving me a modification. So I do offer virtual yoga for, if you are wanting to do yoga in your own space and feel comfortable, or if you have different sports injuries or injuries in general. Obviously, I have arthritis. I have been up many of nights up at 3 a.m. just stretching because I couldn't even, get up in the middle of the night to get on the floor. Maybe I'm not that crunched up. So I've really had to do a lot of different types of work with my own body. And it's hard because I'm small in size. So a lot of times people will just think, oh, you're so flexible, but it's not about the flexibility, and everyone's body is different. A lot of times I feel like a rubber band because of my arthritis, but I have a dance background. So sometimes I can look more limber, but it's not necessarily the case. I've also had knee surgery and dislocated my other knee several times. So
well, your story resonates with me so much. Modifications for me have always been a big thing. And I think that's important if it's yoga or any exercise. It's important to modify. So that's great that you offer that. I just wanted to quickly ask, with the plant-based stuff, is there anything that you recommend? Because I can link it down below. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually do plant-based meal guides. So if anyone is interested, with my sports and nutrition certification, it really helped me to see the difference of carbs, fats, proteins, specifically, and what you need to be getting, different vitamins, minerals, and things like that, and how you can source that from your own foods and different supplements that you have. So I personally just work with like what I've learned and then search, trying different recipes. So I do work with that and helping people make plant-based swaps for, regular snacks, or if they need help with like making meal guides and meal prep, I also do that, as well as fitness guides. All of that is linked on my Mind, Body, Style, and Soul website. You can reach out to me through email anytime. You can also find me on Instagram anytime. I'd love to connect. I love to share stories and just kind of learn what other people are going through and see how I can help them and benefit them and help them have a happy, healthy life.
Is there anything you don't do? Because you do so much and it's awesome.
I feel like I don't paint, and I love art. I grew up with an art background, and that's something that I'm wanting to get into.
Gosh,
So
yeah.
maybe in the next couple of years, but for now, I don't paint.
Well, keep us updated. So thank you so much for coming on my channel. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. You really are.
So wonderful to chat with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.